Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. Well, one of my faithful subscribers has asked me to make an explanatory video about the 4th of June at Eton, because it's the 4th of June. Right, so the 4th of June is like Eton's open day. Some schools call it open day, exhibition day. It's a day when the pupils' parents are invited to come, some other relatives, family, friends, things like that, and wander around. And it's a day of celebration of various things going on, pageantry. So why is the 4th of June a special day? Because it's the birthday of King George III, who was very fond of Eton. Of course, he didn't go to any school. In those days, monarchs always had private tutors. But he spent a lot of his time at Windsor Castle, barely a mile away across the Thames. But he regularly visited Eton, walked down the high street, speaking to trees and handing out gold coins to the Etonians, and took the liveliest interest in various appointments and promotions at the school. The only king prior to that who ever went to school was Edward the Confessor, went to King's School, Ely. That's why it's called King's School. Anyway, and of course, Eton was founded by Henry the Sixth. Now, Etonians prefer to overlook the fact that the two monarchs who were Eton maniacs were also maniacs in both senses. So George III had porphyria. I'm not quite sure what the mental illness of Henry VI was. But anyway, George of that name III was called to God's mercy in the year of grace, 1820. So the story goes that the school got up into mourning for his funeral because I believe he's interred at St George's Chapel, Windsor. I'm not sure if the schoolboys had any role in his funeral because like George VI coffin, some Etonians lined the streets of Windsor in 1952 when George VI's coffin was brought there for his funeral. And so mourning, not mourning as in before the afternoon, but mourning as in grieving for the death of someone. So wearing those black tailcoats with the white shirts. If you're wearing mourning, you wear that. Depending on the relative, you mourn for a certain period of time, up to a year, for someone who's a close blood relative. And so that explains how Eton's uniform is still mostly black over 2 centuries on. The trouble about that story is it's not true, because there is a painting of Etonians a few years later, and they're wearing tailcoats of many hues. The Eton uniform, as we know it, was completely standardised in the 60s. The younger boys had to wear bum freezers, so they were below a certain height, which actually didn't cover your buttocks. Whereas if you're above a certain height, you'd wear these tails that goes down to the back of your knees. Now everybody, regardless of stature, wears a tailcoat. There are slight variations. If you're a house captain and pop, that's probably called the Eton Society. This self-perpetuating elite, normally gifted sportsmen, get into it. Sixth form select the brainiest boys in the top year wearing these silver buttons on their waistcoat, and their stick-ups, which is this white bow tie. Most people wear this minuscule little tie, I don't know what else to call it, made out of starched cotton. There's this detachable starched collar, the kind of thing which hasn't been the norm for other people to wear since the 1930s. So that's called school dress, i.e. school uniform, which you have to wear to lessons and chapel. When you're not at lessons at chapel, you can wear what you want. All right, so the 4th of June used to include a montem well into the 19th century. Montem as in ad montem, to the mountain. They used a process to Salt Hill in Slough, a few miles to the north. I'm not really sure what that was in aid of, but then lots of people came out from London to view it, and the railway meant that more and more visitors were coming and people were getting quite drunk. But anyway, so it ended in the mid-19th century. So the real highlight things now is a procession of boats, and that's on the Thames, obviously, because Eton is just right beside the River Thames. Eton's got a number of boathouses, Rafts, Andrew's Boathouse, Master's Boathouse. There's one on Dorney Lake, that man-made lake that was built in the late 90s. It was an Olympic rowing venue. It was very shallow, but about 2 miles long, not that wide. So there's a boathouse up there. So the 3 boathouses I mentioned, Rafts definitely still exists. Of the other 2, one of them might have been closed. I'm not sure, because I'm not really up to date with things. I mean, I was technically a wet bob as in a rower, but really a slack bob. As in all these rowing crews dressing up in the 19th century sailor's uniform, their rig, and the coxswain, as in the little boy who steers the boat. You choose a small, skinny guy because you've got to carry him. He's not contributing to the power, so you want someone who weighs as little as possible. Find a skinnamalink who's a real short ass, then put him on a diet. And by the way, if you win a rowing race, you throw the cocks in to celebrate. Probably not allowed these days. There's a bit of Weil's disease in the Thames from rat's urine. If you cut yourself and get that water in your cut, the rat's urine can cause you to be very ill. Anyway, so back to the procession of boats. So these crews go along, and the boats, these are old style rowing boats, not the ones used for racing anymore. They're not that aerodynamic or light, the ones they're using. And they've got various names like Hibernia and Britannia, and I can't think what else. And little flag on them, which you wouldn't normally have. And they don't row that fast. And one by one, they have to stop, and the cox is holding the strings to control the rudder and get all of them to stand up. The two boys in the middle stand up, and then so that's 2 out of the 8. It's an 8 each time, and then the other 2, you got 4, and then you got 6, and then you got all 8 of them standing up, and having to stand up quite slowly and hold your oar as you go up. Hold your oar upright. That's the procession of boats, and everybody's watching that, applauding that, standing still for a minute, and then sitting down and rowing on. So they wear these boaters bedecked with a floral wreath, and then they have to say hats off to Eton, and then you put your hat off in this direction, shake some flowers off. Hats off to Windsor, I think it's hats off to the Queen, and shaking all the flowers out, and then you can put them back on. They sit back down and they row on. But for each boat, that takes about a minute to do all that when they've come to opposite where the crowds are. And so some people there was this captain boat's enclosure. Some people think the parents of the boys who are rowing, or various worthies, they get to sit down, and people have to stand around and watch it. And that's really the high point. And then you go to various places to muster according to your block, because the youngest boys at Eton, they're in F block, age 13, up to the top years, B block. They're about 18 and then they leave. So depending on which block you're in and what your surname is, you have to go to various points that there's an absence, as in a presence, a roll call, to see you haven't left early, and then you're allowed to go. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But the boys, before they get on those boats, for the procession of boats, they're breathalyzed, because people have picnics and to see they didn't get drunk. Because it'd be a bit dangerous, they might fall in, and wearing all those clothes could even drown. But the Thames is very shallow at Eton. I fallen in and found myself standing, even though you couldn't see the bottom. So the water's very dark, but it's only deep right in the middle, and not even that deep. And I've only once seen it go wrong and people fall in at the procession of boats. So I heard people say, when it's obviously quite difficult to balance, is if it starts leaning one way, don't overcorrect it, because usually your mistake is to lean this way, correct too much, and that's when you fall, just to correct slightly. But I've seen one time when the boat maybe not completely stationary and they started to stand up, and it was going a bit too fast, but still moving, and actually managed to hit the bank and tip them all in, and they fell in, and there was a rescue boat, not that they really needed it. It was hilarious. Of the 5 years I saw it, and I don't know how many boats are that do this, I'm going to guess about a dozen. I've only once, 12 times 5, so 60 boats. I've only once seen it happen. And I remember my last year putting a balaclava on, going over to this other island. No, it was my second last year, and people could see me not allowed on that island. I can't remember. Oh yeah, I crossed this little stream onto to what's that garden called? I forgot what it's called. Not Lutyens Garden or something, Luxmore's Garden. And had plans to get up to no good, all these inflated condoms to float down the river, but we didn't do it in the end. But I saw 2 guys heading towards me purposefully who worked in the waterworks, wanting to grab me, so I made good my escape. Anyway, so the procession of boats used to be at night as recently as the 60s, but they don't do it because it's a bit dangerous. It's come up to 1990, the 450th anniversary of the school. Angus Graham Campbell, one of the beaks there, he suggested doing it at night again, but that didn't actually happen. So the 4th of June is not actually held on the 4th of June these days. It hasn't been for decades. It's held on the Wednesday before, as in it's the lead into half term. That at 4th of June, have your celebration that Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, you're wherever, at home, days off school. Saturday, Sunday, days off school. You come back to school on Monday. So that's your early half term. It's not even a full week. And then people are sitting in their exams. So people are having picnics on Agar's Plough or wherever else the other playing fields. Dutchman's Farm, and going to their houses. There are things going on like an informal jazz concert. Often the school play has been up to the night before for about a week. The CCF Combined Cadet Force, that's a sort of military training thing. Only about a quarter of the boys join it. You're only allowed to join it in C block, the penultimate year. You can be in B block, but hardly anybody's in it. Has got an Army and a Royal Air Force section. Used to have a Royal Naval section that was scrapped ages ago, like in the 80s. Hardly anybody wants to join it. Eton's not that close to the sea, but plus one time I heard they were on exercise, and the Royal Naval boys, they had to be prisoners of one of the teams they'd set up for their war games, as supposed to be rescued to then participate, but they never got rescued. The attack meant to rescue them failed, so they had to be prisoners for the whole weekend. Quite boring for them. But not many people are interested in joining the armed forces these days. The CCF's quite minor. And there'd be a karate display, and there'd be like art exhibition and various things like that going on. I think there's some service. There's speeches in upper school, as in the boys from sixth form select that very clever group from the boys, the top 20 brains of the B block. They're declaiming whatever they want, poetry or prose, and they wear these knee breeches and long socks. I'm not quite sure why, before they quote these things from memory. Well, that's just a little bit about what goes on the 4th of June. With the delightful Etonian illogic, 4th of June is not on the 4th of June. It's usually late May. So I like some of the antiquated terminology, or like Magister Informator. Nobody says that one anymore, meaning the headmaster. Notice that Eton headmaster is spelled as 2 separate words. Everywhere else it's a 1 word. Okay, that's enough from me. Toodle pip.